Kia ora, good morning. I I've gone quiet on social media on purpose. I've been told to stand down. I've not been put in the prayer position. I'm not awaiting orders. I've been told to stand down, and that's all I can say on the matter. So while I'm sitting here waiting for certain things to happen, I've been taking the time to rewrite my history, and I just want to document it because it's to do with the future of my foundation, FIRE, the Foundation Arts and Entertainment Academy. So when I was locked up, I wrote a story. I had started writing a story called With a Little Help from My Friends. And it tells the story of a boy called Lewis, an Indigenous boy who originally he had run away because he was being bullied at school, and he couldn't take it anymore, so he decided to run away, and he saw a shooting star, a North Star, and he follows the shooting star into the Kelly Forest, where his people used to travel through a magic portal in order to access. It was originally supposed to be about the abuse of Indigenous people, the severe bullying, based on three cases that I knew of, one of them including my own nephew, whose middle name is Lewis, being dark-skinned, and how he was a victim of racial abuse growing up in Australia from the age of like 4. But then also a couple of First Nations, Native American young boys who had come to me in the past through my blog who were suffering from severe depression because they were being bullied at school for being, some of the very few Indigenous people in the American school system. Remember, if I go quiet, it's because I'm taking a sip of my coffee. Because I was locked up for racial abuse, racial discrimination. My equal rights had been denied. My human rights, my Indigenous rights had been denied because these doctors who were judging me based on their lack of understanding of cutting-edge physics, as well as their lack of understanding in Indigenous people, they decided that what I wasn't fit for society, so they decided to try and poison my faith, my science and my indigeneity out of me. So there was a bit of rebellion there as well. So the story with Lewis, he follows the shooting star into the forest and he steps through a portal that he didn't realise he was stepping into, that takes him into the Kelly Forest, and he falls asleep. And when he wakes up, he kind of half wakes up and he sees this woman sitting on a log and she's glowing. She's got all these fairy lights around her. And he falls back asleep. And when he wakes up, there's a bag of cookies sitting in his bag. And in real life, the cookies that you see me posting, and these cookies that you read about in all the stories that I've written will be real cookies in real life. You'll be able to buy them in real life. And, like how they sell Girl Guide cookies, they'll sell these cookies in real life. You'll be able to buy them in real life. Now, Lewis eats these cookies and all these animals start coming out of the forest and talking to him, and he can talk to the animals. And he thinks it's because of these cookies. The animals, once they know he's got these cookies, they can smell them. They run to him and start talking to him and eat these cookies. And it doesn't matter how many animals come out and eat these cookies, the bag of cookies never goes down. It always fills up with cookies. So then when he's talking to the animals, he finds out that there's a war going on, and that they need him to go to the Arboreal Council and help save the grandmother tree, because Jeb the Goblin King from Elatha's dragon, formerly Andre's dragon, is trying to tear the forest down, kill all the animals, poison the water. He wants to take over the Earth Kingdom. He is the king of the Shadowlands, and he wants the Earth Kingdom. He wants to conquer all the other Kingdom of Elements. And they need Lewis's help to protect the grandmother tree, because if he has access to the grandmother tree, he has access to all the other kingdoms in the elemental realms. So, long story short, they go on this journey and they have to fight a war. The animals, everything in the forest, the trees, because he can talk to the trees, he can talk to the animals. The fairy folk come out and they have to engage in a war with the Shadowlands to fight Jeb the Goblin King. So they have to go on a journey to reach the mountain where the Arboreal Council are protecting the grandmother tree. And, you know, a war ensues. The Shadowlands use real weapons. The Kelly Forest use magic. My son Gabriel was helping me come up with all the weapons and that they would use. And then, of course, obviously they save the Kelly Forest and the other kingdoms. And Jeb the Goblin King gets killed because he gets killed in Elatha's dragon. And then when he gets killed in Elatha's dragon, and the news, and with a little help from my friends, hits that Jeb the Goblin King has been killed, stepping onto his own sword, meaning something he's done seals his fate and he's removed. The shadow folk retreat, and then the war is over, and you know the kingdom is saved, and then all the other kingdoms in the realm are saved, and you know there's a great celebration amongst all the kingdoms and blah blah blah. So that was with a little help from my friends. It's talking about deforestation, the mining of the planet, Indigenous rights, how Indigenous people are the guardians to Papatūānuku, to the planet, but it's also, I write about everything that is about me. The woman that he saw sitting on the log is Brahena Saithusa, who is the North Star Dragon. When he saw the shooting star, she was taking him to the Kelly Forest. He didn't realise that by him eating the cookies, it wasn't giving him the magic that he could hear the animals and trees talking, and that it was stepping through the portal into the Kelly Forest that awoken his gift that his family had forgotten, because Indigenous people have forgotten to speak the language of our ancestors, and I'm trying to wake them up, because we have to speak for the trees and the plants and the water and the forest and that in order to protect them, because we've got morons going to conferences in Brazil and chopping down millions of trees just so that they can fit their cars on the road to have a couple of days meeting to preach about climate change. You know, so the story is about saving the environment and saving the animals, and this Indigenous boy helping fight the war. to protect the animals and speak for the animals and the planet and all that. And then in the end, he becomes a famous artist. He goes back and he starts painting the Kelly Forest and the fairy folk and the talking animals and the war. And people in the outside world have no idea what he's talking about because they had no idea this war was going on because he was involved in the unseen war. And so his art becomes well known. He becomes like a well respected Indigenous artist, which is a play on the fact that when I build my school and I have my art gallery, my art will be to promote like Indigenous art and the children's art and all of that. So, you know, it all plays into that whole thing that I'm going to be presenting when I build my school. And then I wrote during lockdown where the teeny tiny folk live. And it was originally about how when they put the whole fake COVID thing on, it was the doctors and nurses that got all the praise for putting on this fake pandemic. But nobody was thinking about the people that worked in the supermarkets, the people that, you know, like the bin collectors, the distribution drivers, the people making sure that, you know, we had our electricity. And because we were all on lockdown, it was the little people that weren't getting the praise. It was all the doctors and nurses who now we know ended up being on the plot to bloody take down our queen. And this all matters, that like this is all pertinent to my whole story and the point of this video. You know, but like the distribution drivers and the delivery drivers and all of that, the ones that nobody cared about, they were the unseen teeny tiny people. So I had written this story about a whole city, a whole town, a whole world hidden amongst the trees and the bushes and the grass of all the insects who lived, you know, they were bus drivers and posties and police officers and all that, but they were insects and they lived normal lives and they went on this adventure and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Kind of like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with a bit of wind in the willows. I even wanted to do it, I wanted to make it like, because I wanted to do like a TV series of where the teeny tiny folk live, because I have to write kids TV shows. So I'd written where the teeny tiny folk lives with the intention of it being like Wind in the Willows, like where every week you'd have an episode for my kids channel. And I'd love to do it like how Wind in the Willows with, you know, stop motion and that, like like that. The way they made that when I was a kid, like watching it when I was younger, and that just blew my mind. David Jason did the voice of Toad, I remember that. But I thought it would be really neat to have the main characters, like, you know, all the animals be knitted. I've seen a couple of things floating about that inspired me to want to, like, all the furniture in there is props, but the animals are knitted characters that are animated. I thought that would be fascinating, like Bagpuss and all that, you see. So that's where the teeny tiny folk live. So then, obviously, writing Becoming Spellbound is my rom-com sort of thing. Like my Bridget Jones kind of genre, because remember we said we'd do a different movie in a different genre. And in Becoming Spellbound, Sam Kelly she's the guardian to the fairy realms, and all the women in her bloodline are the guardians to the fairy realms. Her mother was, her grandmother was, her great grandmother, yada yada blah. and they have the access to the fairy realms. I want to film it in Ireland. I want to film it where my dad's people came from, the Callahans, from Limerick, Cork County, that kind of area. I'd love to film it around there. Real people, real actors. But in it, yeah, she's like the gatekeeper to the fairy realms, and Baron von Crumple is trying to get access to those fairy realms, and the only way he can do that is by getting the ring off King Rupert's finger. So in this time that I've been told to stand down, what I've actually done is I have torn, with a little help from my friends and where the teeny tiny folk live, down and changed the whole thing. So that with a little help from my friends now also includes the fairy folk, and where the teeny tiny folk live is going to be fairies living with the insects in the Kelly Forest. Everything is based around the Kelly Forest. Kelly is Irish for emerald, so it's the Emerald Forest. And if you know about Ireland and the Emerald Forest, right? So, but Sam Kelly, named after Samantha Stevens from Bewitched, because I loved that show growing up. She's Sam Kelly, and she is a direct descendant of Brehena Saithusa, who is a North Star dragon, but she's the Grand Empress Fairy Godmother. And the reason why she's the Grand Empress Fairy Godmother is because dragons in folklore are the rulers of the grandparent bloodline. They are the rulers of ancient history. They are the rulers of mythology. They are the rulers of gold, treasure, magic, children, and the grandmother, grandfather bloodlines. So she's the one that Lewis saw sitting on the log, and he thinks that it's the cookies that allowed him to speak to the animals and the trees and stuff, and the babbling brook was saying and all of that, but it's because when he stepped through the portal to enter the kingdom of the Emerald Kingdom, it awoken his ancestral ability to be able to talk to the planet, to talk to nature. Wherever it is that I build my foundation, I need to be able to buy land with enough trees. I need to buy enough land where they've got it has to have a forest attached, because I've got this whole thing built up where this forest is going to be the Kelly Forest. So when the children come and look for their wands, and we do enchanted forest stories and that at night, where we put on lights and actors and take them through because I was inspired by when my kids were little, up in Pitlochry in Scotland. We took them to an enchanted forest night, and it was I took my brother and sister-in-law as well. We went up and we had to have torches, and they put on all these lights and this big pantomime, and we got to have mulled wine and stuff at the end of it, and it was just incredible the way they did it. It inspired me, but I'd do it better. In the winter, when we have the winter solstice and all of that, the kids can come with their parents, and they'll go on our little miniature train to the Kelly Forest when they have to walk through the Kelly Forest, and we'll have actors and music and lights and displays, and put on a whole play for them, kind of here I go. I talk about it constantly. Bollocks, bloody narcissistic abuse, short-term memory loss. William Shakespeare. I talk about it all the time. Midsummer Night's Dream, kind of like that, in the forest, but with fairies and animals and the actors, and for any of the kids that will be in our doing theatre and acting, and any of my staff and all of that, dress up, and I'll get to dress up as Brehena Saithusa at the end, where I'll have like my little wings on my back, and because dragons, they rule magic, they rule alchemy, so we can shapeshift. So she can be the queen, she can be the empress with her crown on her head, she can be a fairy, and she can be a dragon. But the only people that get to see her as a dragon is her most trusted companions, which is like the Wolf King. The Wolf King knows she's a dragon. Nobody else knows she's a dragon. Just like the people that have access to the North Star know she's a dragon. Otherwise, the kids see her, the kids that believe in magic see her as a white dragon, like Kaithusa. But the kids aren't, like when they're asleep and that, when they're making their wishes, they see her as the white dragon. But on Earth, she's a woman, or she like a queen, or she's got her wings on. She just turns her dragon wings into fairy wings, because dragons rule alchemy and magic and all that. So she can be whatever the hell she likes. She can be in anything. Like Santa, wherever you see a Christmas decoration, Santa can see what you're doing. That's how he knows whether you're naughty or nice, because like he can watch you wherever there's anything Christmas themed, because he's magic. And hang on, sip. But wherever I build my foundation has to have a lot of land, and it has to have a forest attached, because I've got this whole thing planned of how it's going to go based around my stories and TV shows. And my hope is, when I'm long gone and my son is running my empire, my stories and movies will be like Disney, in the fact that when people come to the foundation, it's like a magic kingdom. They're stepping into my stories, and they're getting to eat the real cookies from my stories, and see the real grandmother tree and the real this and the real that from my stories. The real Kelly Forest, where you get to find real wands and take them to the arts and crafts centre, and bling them up and learn fairy magic at the Amber Wilkinson School of Witchcraft and all of that. So when they step through the gates of my foundation, they're stepping into the kingdom that I created through my stories and books and games and movies, that the doctors decided was a mental illness, all to raise money to build the safe houses for the kids. But the thing is, I really, really, I don't know why every fibre of my being keeps saying that. I just think King Charles needs to be a part of this. See, I was originally going to name my production company QE2 Productions, named after Queen Elizabeth II, because in New Zealand we call her QE2, because it was just, an abbreviation for Queen Elizabeth II, but we just call her QE2. In New Zealand, if you say, I remember when QE2 was alive, everyone's going to know you were talking about Queen Elizabeth. And she's been a huge part of this whole process for me, this whole journey, in helping the king and, trying to keep him safe and all of that, which is what becoming spellbound is all about. And because she's like the gatekeeper to the fairy realms, and Baron von Crumple is trying to have access to the fairy realms, he commands the unseelie. The unseelie are the bad fairies in Irish folklore, and but she protects the seelie, the good fairies. So with a little help from my friends, the unseelie are fighting the seelie, and in where the teeny tiny folk live, the seelie are going to Sam and becoming spellbound to ask her for help, because the unseelie are causing trouble in their fairy kingdoms. And so they go on an adventure like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, to go to Sam Kelly to ask her for help. So I've had to rewrite the whole thing, but I just really, really think See, Admiral Arrington is a goose, and with a little help from my friends. And I really think that King Charles would be fantastic to do the voice of Admiral Arrington. And I think he'd be fantastic to narrate the musical Night of a Black Sun, and also Where the Teeny Tiny Folk Live, the kids' TV series. I really want to get him involved in it. I think that given his age and everything he's been through with his cancer and being a koro, being a granddad, I think that him lending his voice to do narration of children's stories and all of that, even though A Night of a Black Sun, like War of the Worlds, is based about a zombie apocalypse and all that sort of thing, given the fact that his mother died as a result of COVID, and A Night of the Black Sun is about what Bill Gates did and the whole COVID thing and the vaccines and it turning everyone into basically ticking time bombs of death. But it's to raise awareness as well, to raise money for the trafficking of children and the whole thing that his family were thrown into. I think that it would be appropriate for him to be a part of it because of everything that his family have had to endure at the hands of all the bad people, at the hands of all the unseelie, the darkness that you couldn't see, the bad fairy folk that he couldn't see, but that Sam Kelly knew was there because she sees the fairy realms. But I think that Where the Teeny Tiny Folk Live, can you not just hear him like Wind in the Willows, da na 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 na. That, remember, it starts with like just a brief narration, and Toad was blah 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 blah. But with the king, I could just see him sitting in the chair, opening the little book that's like a little magic book, and him narrating it. Just, he wouldn't even have to leave his home. What a legacy to leave his grandchildren and his great grandchildren, and then in generations to come, when people are visiting the foundation, they'll be able to sit in the theatre, and we'll be able to in the Babysitters Club and that, like anything that he lent his voice to, the movies, the stories and that, he's left that legacy there forever, long after he's gone. Because I am going to be the new Disney, whether they like it or not. Because I'm going to take over from Disney in the fact that I'm going to be a movie-making empire based around children's imaginations and that, but where we're family-friendly and children don't get hurt. So, yeah, I've torn everything down. I've torn my stories down, and I've reconstructed them and rewritten them in a way that they all intertwine now. I call it the honeycomb system. And I want people to step into my secret garden and see my brew house. I really, really want to have my brew house shaped like a teapot. So you can come in and just, like have a nice pot of tea and some jam scones with my jam and my cream and all of that, and sit in the giant teapot and that. But Miss Mouse's brew house, I was going to call it, because Miss Mouse was one of the characters in Where the Teeny Tiny Folk Live. And I don't know, I think King Charles would just be, I want to bring him in on it. I can make him so much money if he just stepped away and dissolved Parliament and got rid of Labour and that, and rebuilt Great Britain, tore down tore it all down and rebuilt it, I could actually make him so much money with my food, with my products, with like my space program. We could get involved in, like, I could get him involved in my Golden Wings project. You know, wherever you see a pair of golden wings, a child knows they can ask for help, that sort of thing. He could be a part of all of that if he just stepped away from Parliament. If he dissolved Parliament, put someone he trusted in charge who can tear the whole old system down of, like I saw a thing on X, where the police officers are taking Union Jacks off veterans, actual veterans, and the Queen loves, the one thing that the Queen loved more than anything was her veterans. She was a veteran of World War II herself, and she has a lot of love and respect for veterans, and I watch British police officers trying to arrest and harass veterans, the Queen's veterans, and taking their Union Jacks off them because they might offend migrants. I'm a migrant. I'm not offended. Or is it only a particular migrant? I'm a Muslim migrant. My grandmother was Muslim, and I'm not offended. I'm proud to raise that Union Jack. And it's just like, if the king just stepped away from all of that, like I tell you, if I was in charge, I would have a skeletal police department, and like I'd they'd be getting all fired. I'd be getting rid of them all and just leaving skeletal police. And because we wouldn't be getting involved in any other country's bollocks, I'd use the military to keep the streets safe while we were bringing police officers back who were true to swearing their allegiance to the King and the British flag, where the King and the British flag came before any other country and their flag. So my police, what do you call them? My police department, Ministry of Police, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what it's called here. Would be a skeletal staff, and it would only be those who had proven their allegiance. All these police officers that I've been seeing on X and stuff, they'd be without a job because they're traitors. These people, they take an oath of office and they swear allegiance to the King or Queen and to the country. And when you're harassing British veterans and taking their flags off them, you're a traitor. And I wouldn't want any traitors patrolling the streets of Great Britain if I was Prime Minister. But that's a whole different thing. If the King could step away from all of that and have a reign where he just got to be in peace, where he wasn't having to deal with all the fires that Keir Starmer was lighting and putting on his doorstep, along with his corrupt government and parliament that are so easily paid off by other nations to do their bidding instead of that of the kings and the taxpayers. There's so much I can offer him, where his grandchildren would just think he was the coolest koro granddad ever. And then his great-grandchildren, and then long after he's gone, Admiral Arrington you'd be able to buy Admiral Arrington plushies. And the thing is that everything that I've created has the potential to grow bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. For example, my son and I came up with a character called Captain Lucky, who's a spider, who was a seafaring, he was like in the Navy, the Royal Navy, and then when he retired, he became just like sails out on the boats, and he does a bit of fishing, and, he goes up and down the waterways and all of that. He's Captain Lucky, and he's a spider. He's a bell spider, because, bell spiders can go under the water. And he has a nemesis that he's been fighting for the longest time called the Kraken. So this bell spider's greatest nemesis is the Kraken. And he's got wooden legs, and, he's got 5 wooden legs because the Kraken keeps pulling them off. And I think we decided 4 eye patches and all of that, but he's as hard as nails. Like he's very, you know, and very, yeah, God, him in himself, and Admiral Arrington, like, and even like Sam's grandpa that I wrote in my Anahita series, which now needs to be all renamed. Um, there's stories and books and video games and TV shows in there and movies, all in their own right, because I wrote such incredible backstories to all my characters that what I've created will be a never ending flow of income for generations to come. So when you sit down and you watch or you listen to, with a little help from my friends, or Where the Teeny Tiny Folk Lives, a lot of the characters that I talk about can then have their own offshoot of stories and movies and merchandise and TV shows, and, you know, has the potential to make a lot of money in the future, long after I'm gone, long after my kids have gone, as long as my kids and grandkids are writers and still creative and all of that, you know. And so I decided to name my production company Fairy Folk Productions, and my games company is going to be called QE2 Games, because the Queen, I found out, loved to play video games. Harry and William taught her how to play video games. So I've been tearing everything down. And in the time I've been told to stand down and not post anything on social media, I'm only allowed to make videos that aren't about anything other than what I'm creating. Or, you know, my Oracle of Delphines, connecting the dots, that sort of thing. I'm only allowed to stick to my future. And sticking to my future means that I've been sitting here rewriting the past. I've been rewriting history, rewriting, with a little help from my friends, rewriting Where the Teeny Tiny Folk Live, to incorporate it into becoming Spellbound, and then Alatha's Dragon, and, you know, far and beyond to the North Star, where Brehena Sithusa sits and watches over it all. But my bakery, my department store will sell my cookies. My bakery will sell like big versions of the cookies, so you can buy the cookie and eat it with a coffee walking around the garden or sitting in the park or whatever. And then you'll be able to buy packets of my cookies. They'll be like the Girl Guide ones, but they're because I want to have the Honeybee Club, which is going to be our version of Boy Scouts and Girl Guides, but where it's boys and girls, because honeybees are boys and girls. So instead of Girl Guides going around selling Girl Guide cookies, it'll be the Honeybee Club cookies, honeybee cookies. And so all the money for the sale of the honeybee cookies, which in just about every story I wrote when I'd written the Anahita Wick series, like with a little, Wishes Make Your Dreams Come True, and Red Eyes Tell No Lies, those kind of things, over me, and and then they were gone, which I also wrote when I was locked up, involves all my stories. Involves all my cookies, my biscuits. So you'll be able to buy them in real life. Yeah, so all the money will go into raising money for the Honeybee Club, and it's the Honeybee Club that promotes the Golden Wings program. Wherever you see a pair of golden wings, you can go and ask for help. I want it to be like a nationwide, international, doing the fallen trees hand signal. My boys and I came up with the fallen trees hand signal. If you know, the kid does the fallen tree down hand signal, it means they need rescuing, like that sort of thing. So I just, the king could get involved in my jam. He could get involved in, you know, because it's all like organic and chemical free and sugarless and healthy. It's weight loss. It's my supernatural foods. I could do like See, I wanted to do like a Vladdy B range, like Vladimir and I, Vladimir and Debbie, because my name Debbie means bee in real life, or queen bee. It's Hebrew for bee, as in bzz. And my middle name Lee, Debbie Lee. My name's Debbie Lee. It means bee of the meadow. So I said to him we could do a whole Vladdy bee range where we would keep our own bees. We're going to keep our own bees, and then all the products that had honey in it, like selling our honey, and my honeycomb um, chocolate and honeycomb ice cream, and all of that sort of stuff would be the Vladdy bee range, and all the proceeds to that would be going towards the Veterans Trust, the George Callaghan Trust, which is, for veterans of the military and police force and all of that. But I'd love to do one for the King's Range as well, where it was like, because I know that he likes, he's got his own Duchy of Cornwall jams and all of that for his cream teas and that. I would love to do like a whole thing with him, and then he could either keep the money himself or donate it, or whatever. But I can't stop thinking about it, because I've written him into becoming spellbound, and then I had him in mind for Admiral Arrington. If he could just let go of that, if he could just let go of all that drama that has been placed on his doorstep, and trusted me to do it the right way, he'd be leaving such a beautiful legacy behind. Because like, he's incredible at reciting poetry, and his family, they're artistic and creative, and it's all about the arts, and he loves, engaging in the arts and the theatre and poetry and all that. And it's like, the world that I've created is more suited to him than the world that Starmer's created and forced him to live in. And it's like, just, oh, King Charles, wake up. He could sit in his chair at home after he's had, because obviously with his cancer treatment and everything, so his role in it wouldn't even be strenuous. I had that dream with his mum, with 10 Downing Street, where she said in the dream, she is insisting, she said in the dream that he would love my sugarless chocolate Afghans. And I've got like 5 in the chocolate Afghan range now, 5 different flavours of chocolate Afghans, whereas in New Zealand we only have one. But I've got like a gourmet chocolate Afghan range that some of the stuff I do is sugarless, some of the, because I have a naughty and nice list. And the naughty list is, it will have sugar in it, but it's yummy, but it not unhealthy. And then I have the nice, which is sugarless, and it's, everything's organic and chemical free and all of that. But because there's some things that I do where I don't know how to make sugarless icing sugar. I can do sugarless chocolate, but I can't do sugarless icing sugar. And with certain frostings and that, it needs to be icing sugar. So while the cookie might be sugarless, the frosting on it won't be. Do you know what I mean? Like with my Christmas cookie range, I've got like a butter cookie recipe that I have, that like every year I make Christmas cookies. I do my stained glass windows, I do my oat and raisin, and then I do my Christmas cookies in the shape of like Christmas trees and sugar canes and all of that. But the icing in that, which I created, is just like the best icing in the world, and really, really good for you. But it does have icing sugar in it. But the cookie itself, the butter cookie, is sugarless. But I can do both. It just depends on what you want. Um, but I'll offer both. If you want to have something that's a little bit sweet, then it's going to be there. But if you want to keep away from the sugar list, then it's there as well, you know. So it's like I planted one seed and it's turned into like a meadow and a forest and a kingdom and a country and an empire and it's just never ending, never expanding. I just need to get out of here and find somewhere to build my foundation, and it needs to be somewhere that has a lot of land, that has trees around it, where I can put a miniature train going around the whole park, because that matters, trust me, because I wrote a story when Gabriel was little called The Littlest Train. And then I rewrote that to turn that into a Halloween story so that we would have an excuse to turn the miniature train into a Halloween train. We're going to have like a mini Christmas train and a mini Halloween train. And then for the rest of the year, we've got like the miniature train, because it's going to be big grounds. If you don't want to walk, you'll be able to get on and off the train to stop at certain destinations. And then it gives us an excuse to go around buying miniature trains and looking for people to run the trains. And like, I've built this whole kingdom. One of the videos that I made when just before Chris got me locked up, I made a video where I open up the book and I'm showing how he stole my stories, Thomas the Robot. And when I flip open the page, you'll see like a really bad drawing of a dragon, but then you'll see I've drawn train tracks around it, because it was the original blueprint to what I've expanded on. It needs to snow where I live, so it can't be anywhere in Great Britain, unfortunately, because it doesn't snow here enough. But my God, I would love to get the king involved. It doesn't mean I can't build here. It just means that where I build first needs to have snow, because I'm relying on it snowing to be bringing quite a lot of revenue during the winter season, because I'm not just about obviously creating a safe environment for the freaks, geeks, nerds, dorks and weirdos of the teenage prepubescent world to come and explore their creative talents to the fullest, without being bullied and ridiculed and forced to medicate because they're a bit weird and different and the parents don't know how to handle them and that. But I'm all about bringing in tourism as well. It was why I said if I was Prime Minister, I would seal Great Britain off, and then I would just plant these seeds all over Great Britain that I'm talking about, and then just let the tourists come in and, oh, the things I could do. It's like, come on, King Charles. He could sit in his chair. He could have some of because I want to do my own range of teas and coffees. He could have some of my herbal tea, having my cookies, reading his story while we're recording his voice, and then we could like match it to, the start of where the teeny tiny folk live, which is going to be just like Wind in the Willows. I'll put a link in the description box below, but I talk about this constantly on social media. I've put a link up, but I'll put it in the description box. I'll even put in the video where you show me opening the book just before Chris came and got me taken away. And you'll see my original drawing. I can't draw, I'm not an artist, I'm a writer. But where the teeny tiny folk live, I would love to do it like Wind in the Willows with David Jason. Is it Michael Gambon as well? Did he do Badger? I think it was Michael Gambon, but I know David Jason did the voice of Toad. It'd be just like that, but where the animals are knitted characters. But it won't just be animals, it will be fairies as well. Because in writing Becoming Spellbound, I opened the door to the fairy realms because I unlocked my Irish door. It's tapped me back into my Callaghan roots, because I'm always focused on my Indigenous side, my Arab side and my Scottish side, but I hardly do anything based around the Callaghan side. And writing Becoming Spellbound, it reminded me of I'd forgotten the fairy folk. My father, when I was little, he didn't believe, he was terrified of, he used to call us witches. You bloody girls are doing that witchcraft witchcraft voodoo bullshit, he used to call it. Doing that bloody witchcraft voodoo bullshit, he'd say. But when it came to the fairies, he was the one that used to tell us that there were fairies at the end of the garden. And, like when babies were born and that, about keeping an eye on the fairies. And yeah, he was the one that used to tell us stories when we were little. We'd get up in the morning when mum was making breakfast for us all, and we'd go into my parents' room and he'd turn on the radio and we'd listen to the Sunday morning matinee radio stories with, like, I'm a little fire engine, Flick is my name. They won't let me put out fires, isn't that a shame? One day I'll be big and strong to fight every flame. When you want a fire out, quick, call a little engine, call a little engine, call a little engine, Flick. That story, and the little engine that could, the one that had, I think I can, I think I can. And there was Bad Jelly the Witch and all that. That's why I want to do Sunday morning children's story matinee with the grandmother tree. My son and I wrote the jingle to the grandmother tree. And so Sunday mornings, you'll be able to turn on the radio and the kids will be able to listen with their parents and that to us telling these stories, where we get to put on all the voices and all of that, just like I did when I was little. And when the story time had ended, my dad and with my brother John, they used to make their own stories, and he had stories about, like the super mouse and the magic fairies and the goblins and the giants and all of that. And that was my dad. He created that in me. That's why he's so much a part of a lot of what I've created. Like, see my pies. I want to do like a whole range of pies in my bakery. I want to specialise in pies. New Zealand, New Zealanders, we're probably the pie nation of the world, and you'll go into bakeries and there'll be like 30 different flavours of pies. Well, we even had a place like McDonald's, but it was called Georgie Pie. But it only was around for a few years and then it shut down. But my dad loved Georgie Pie. Well, I said, I want my pie range to be George's Pies, because my dad's name was George. And then obviously it's a great way to raise money for the George Callaghan Trust, which is where we will pay for the funerals and burials of veterans who can't afford, you know, their funerals, and we'll take them and we'll put them in our graveyard outside the Amber Wilkinson School of Witchcraft. As long as they agree when they sign up to it that they will end up being actors in horror movies. They'll be dead actors in their graves in horror movies. They can opt to have their headstones covered up if they don't want their names appearing in the horror movies that the kids are going to be making, and at Halloween as well, So, and then also, it's also training for my students for the School of Witchcraft too. So, all hands on deck. And I just think I really, really, really want King Charles to be a part of it. Even if I'm lucky enough to be able to immigrate to somewhere like Russia or Hungary and do it all there, I can still get the king involved, because all we need is his voice, and he can just sit and we can like hook him up to a microphone in the comfort of his own home, enjoying all my products as little like perks of the job, and he could lend his voice. And I just think that that's so much better for him to be involved in than what Starmer's got him involved in right now. Lying to him about gases in prisons and in order to steal the wealth out from under him, to allow Jeb the Goblin King to come sneaking in to steal the kingdoms. And yeah, so I've rewritten it. The only thing I need to do now, I've got Mary the Fairy. She's one of my characters. Mary the Fairy, she's from Glasgow, you know. And she's in the Art of Creation animated TV series. But my Anahita Wick stories, my Anahita Storytime series with Wishes Make Your Dreams Come True and Red Eyes Tell No Lies and You Have No Power Over Me and all of that. It was originally Anahita, who is Brehena Saithusa before she becomes the Empress, before she graduates and gets her wings and becomes the Empress of the North Star. But now, I mean, I could make it Mary the Fairy, you know. And Mary the Fairy, she's for Glasgow, and she's been in the Art of Creation animated TV series. She's forbidden. There's a rule when they go to drink after work at the Alchemist Cavern, because the cafe and the bar that they drink at in the animated series, because obviously it's an adult, it's like it's an adult animated series like Family Guy and South Park and all that, not really for kids. There's this rule at the Alchemist Tavern, which will be my real bar. I'll have a real bar at the foundation called the Alchemist Tavern, because we're open to the public and we're open to tourists, and that will have the Royal Oak Tree Inn, which will be like my my hotel. And the Royal Oak Tree obviously is because Callaghan, our coat of arms, has got the oak tree with the wolf coming out of it. So the Callaghan is in there. I just, it's not that I'd forgotten about the fairies, the fairy folk. It's that they'd been pushed aside for so long because I was so busy building everything else. But now it's time to concentrate on the fairies and, Bridget and the goddess Bridget and all of that. So I get to write all of that in, because Sam Kelly is also a descendant of Brigid, however you want to say it, Bridget. So yeah, so now I'm opening the gateway to the fairy realms, because of becoming spellbound. And King Rupert is obviously based on King Charles, and he's become integrated into my whole history now, that it just seems like a shame not to be able to get him to lend his voice to some of these characters and stories, even if he didn't want to do, the Richard Burton Orson Welles narration of our version of War of the Worlds, the Night of the Black Sun, even just for Admiral Arrington, and with a little help from my friends, and doing the very brief introduction to every episode of Where the Teeny Tiny Folk Live, I think he would be perfect. And I just think that, like his grandkids, his mokopuna, his grandchildren, would be able to sit around and watch him record them and then see the end result, like Grandpa or Grandpapa or whatever they call him. Papa, look, that's you, oh my God. How cool. I got goosebumps. And then every time I invented a new cookie or a vegetarian pie, because I know he's a vegetarian and I do vegetarian stuff, he'd get all the free samples. Like, he'd get gift baskets turning up with my crackers and my cheeses and my chutneys and relishes. And I've got some sauces there made from fruit that would be perfect for him to have on his vegetables, perfect to put on things like baked brie, perfect for things like duck and beef and chicken and all of that too. But he's a vegetarian. But like macaroni cheese pies and all that, like, I want to do my own versions. I wish he'd wake up and come and join the fairies, King Rupert. He's got the ring. He has the ring. He has the seal. He just needs to step through. So everything I've created, from the first seed I planted when I wrote The Porcelain Rabbit, and then the second story I wrote was Andre's Dragon, which is now Elatha's Dragon. Started as one seed, and now it's like a whole empire has blossomed. And in the world of imagination and creativity and magic and mythology and folklore that we've been able to turn into video games, TV series, movies, books, a whole range of toy merchandise, radio shows, kids shows, um, Dungeons and Dragons version, like RPG and LARPing. We've built like an entire thing based on me writing one story. And like I said, even if I leave the United Kingdom and set up shop somewhere else, he can still get involved. And then once everything picked up and people knew what I was and people were coming from all over the world to come and stay with us at the foundation, then I can find other countries to build them in. And if I was going to build the foundation anywhere, I'd probably want it to be somewhere like Scotland, Wales, or Ireland because of the fact that they still remember the fairy magic. They, especially Ireland and Wales, when it comes to, mysticism and folklore and fairy folk and that, they still live it, they still remember it, they haven't forgotten it like the English have. The English have got the gnomes and the goblins and all of that, but the Welsh and the Irish, they still embrace the whole magic of Merlin and, the fairy folk and all of that. So Ireland, Southern Ireland would be perfect to build a foundation. But yeah, we'll just see. So yeah, so I don't know if my Anahita Wick series will be, the adventures of Mary the fairy. But yeah, and the art of creation, there's this whole folklore around the alchemist tavern, because I want to do my own range of alcohol in that as well, where it is forbidden to give Mary the fairy whiskey. You do not give her whiskey, because if Mary the fairy has some whiskey, she can be a bit saucy and spicy, and there's nothing worse than a mischievous fairy. We all know about the blue caps and red caps, which is in Arthur's Dragon, but yeah, red caps are a bit more pixies as well. Pixies are trouble. People don't realise with pixies, they help you during the day and they will clean for you and they will keep your house immaculate, but at night time they go outside and they tip all the bins over and cause trouble. Pixies are trouble at night time if they're not under lock and key, and people don't know that about pixies. If you see like tipped over bins and rubbish all over the streets and stuff like that, that's because of a bloody pixie. So, pixies aren't as sweet as what people think they are. So I know that because my dad. So, yeah, so I'm trying to reawaken the magic in everyone. I want to introduce children to the beauty of Indigenous magic and folklore and mythology and that involves the fairies, like the mischievous ones and the ones that can help you. And because you got to remember, Irish are Indigenous, and people from Iceland and Greenland and Norway and that, they're all Indigenous as well. There's Indigenous people in Siberia and Russia, and it's not just about being Mesoamerican or Polynesian. And we've all got our fairies and folklores and fairy tales, and I'm bringing all of that together to put in one garden, one magic garden. Even when you walk into the gates of my foundation, it's going to be an illusion. You're going to think you're walking, that you have to step through a tree, that you have to drive through like a camera obscura sort of thing, where you're going to feel like you're having to drive into, not like like Harry Potter, the wall of 9 3/4, like that, but it's probably going to be like a tree where you're going to feel like you're having to, but if I keep driving, following the road, I'm going to drive through that tree, but it's all an illusion. And then when you drive through these all like there's wibbly wobblies, and you're going to feel like you're spinning and floating like in Willy Wonka when they go on that boat, but it's all an illusion. And then you come out the other side into Brehena Sarthusa's Magic Kingdom, which is the foundation. So yeah, and I want to get the king on board. I just think bringing him along for the ride is offering him something so much better and nicer and friendlier to the planet and family friendly that his kids and grandkids and great grandkids and all that can get involved in the future long after him and I are gone. Where then our mokopuna can look back and go, wow, Disneyland, but where the magic is real, where it's all real, where some of the characters are based on real people and real life, you know. So when we have characters walking around like King Rupert, people are going to know that was based on King Charles. Admiral Arrington, that was King Charles. Like, oh my God, that was a real king, you know. So yeah, so it's probably going to be the Adventures of Mary the Fairy. The only reason why I'm hesitant to rename it The Adventures of Mary the Fairy series is because of the fact that in the animated series she is a bit spicy when she has a drink, and I don't know that I want kids knowing that after work when she clocks off, when she goes to the Alchemist Tavern, as long as Mary the Fairy is only drinking sherry, she's all right, you know. You just didn't give her the whiskey. You didn't give her the dram because she's trouble. So I'm hesitant to make the Anahita Wick series Mary the Fairy. So the Tales of Brehena Saithusa probably, or because I want it to be like a book series where you can either buy the books individually or buy them like an encyclopedia series where it'll be, like say 10 or 11 books in the series and you can buy the whole series together or individually. And there's, the cat who found his meow, and there'll be like the Y Woman as well, because the Y Woman, that's like a wee short animated movie that I want to do in the style of, Take On Me, aha, where it's pencil drawings. But that can be a little series in itself as well, especially Halloween. We did like a whole range from my cat, Ghibli, my familiar, who's no longer with us. So, yeah, everything I created just from planting one seed has just turned into like this whole, as far as the eye can see, and it's just will get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, depending on how much money I make, depending on investments and backing, and I want to try and do as much of it myself as I can. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing. So I won't be posting anything on social media. You won't see me on X or Instagram or anything like that. I'll put a link in the description box for. I just posted a wee song for the king to open the doorway to the fairy realms for him. I'll post a video as well where you see my really badly drawn. I'm upset because I've just found out that my ex-husband has tried to poison me in the video, and that he'd stolen my book. And so I'm going through my book while I'm waiting for them to come and lock me up, because they decide that theoretical physics, astrophysics, and being a Māori person was a mental illness, and I was worthy of being poisoned to the point of it splitting my scars open and almost poisoning me to death with chronic infection. So yeah, lovely. But I got to write with a little help from my friends while I was locked up as a result, and then they were gone, which is a story about a little girl who sees dead people, kind of like Sixth Sense, but it's all based on real events and real stories and cases that I worked on growing up, and how Brehena Saithusa comes down and brings the BFG to her, the biorhythmic field generator, which is it's a real thing. Um, I'm going to use my BFG when I go and do my Eye in the Sky shows. And I just have to set um, the components, place it down on the ground. Like in the story, it was an electronic device, but then later on, when I was, because I'm a biorhythmic engineer, when I was thinking about it, I thought, well, what happens if if we're in a place in a remote part of the world and we run out of batteries, or it's raining? What am I going to use? And then I figured it out, harking back to my Egyptian engineering roots and Nikola Tesla and that, and I put the two together and came up with a way that my BFG is now completely organic. But I can also put the BFG in kids' night lights and lamps, because I want to do my own like I want to do my own range of like kids' night lights and lamps that will have the BFG in it, so that when they turn it on, it scares all the scary, removes all the scary things in their room. So yeah, but that's my BFG. It was originally, she turns the dial and the lights light up and blah blah blah. Gabriel and I were trying to figure out how we were going to do it, but then I thought, well, what happens if I'm doing an Eye in the Sky show and I'm in somewhere like Central or South America doing an investigation or something, and then it's raining, or like the batteries run out? What do I do? And so I came up with it's using organic materials, and then I just turn the dials and set it like a multi-layered compass, and then put it down on the ground and do what I have to do, and it'll do the job for me. So yeah, but that's about where Brianna's comes down and gives her a BFG and tells her how to use it, and it stops her from seeing all the dead people that keep coming to her for help, because it's the reason why I hate hospitals ever since I was a little girl, because the hospital, regardless of what psychics and mediums and paranormal investigators will tell you, there's only one place in the world where the living and the dead meet, and that's hospitals. Um, Only hospitals. It's the only place in the world where the living and the dead meet, is hospitals. Nowhere else. And I hated it, because every time I go into hospitals, I'm surrounded by people asking me for help. It's been like that ever since I was a little girl. So there's stories about a little girl called B who goes to the hospital to visit her grandma, and the dead come out. She sees the plane crash, and she sees this and she sees that, and it's scaring her. So then Sam's grandpa tells her to call out to Brianna, which she does. Brianna shows up, gives her the BFG, shows you what to do, tells her why she can see what she's seen, and then she uses the BFG and she stops seeing all the dead people. Well, that's a real invention. But I made it organic. But I can do an electronic version that you can put into kids' night lights and lamps and stuff. So, yeah, but in real life, like my organic one, when I take it on my Eye of the Sky show adventures, it's going to be made from the earth. But you won't be able to buy that. That's my tool, because you need to be a gatekeeper to unlock the frequencies. It's like you'd be using it like a combination lock. You have to put codes into the phases in order to unlock the combination to open up the frequencies that you would need to push all the paranormal activity away, and shut things down, lower frequencies down, and nobody else has access to that. It's only me. I'm a gatekeeper. So yeah. So I've been building all of this. There's so much I've been doing, so much still left to do, but while I'm being told I have to stand down from social media, this is what I'm doing. And I hope when this is over, I really, really do. I hope the king wakes up and wants to be a part of what it is. He doesn't even, all he has to do is taste my food, maybe let me do like a range of nice little yummies with him, where maybe I get to put like a little royal seal or something on it. Just great promotion, great for tourism as well. And where he gets to sit in a chair and just lend his voice to characters. That's it. And then he could do so much for tourism. Man, oh, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, you won't see me on social media for a bit because I've been told to stand down. I'm not allowed to say a single word. All I'm allowed to do is make my little videos. I put the post up to the song, but I'll put it in here and I'll put the video up of the just before he got me locked up. And I've even got, um, and then they were gone, which I recorded on the phone when I was locked up. My friend BJ sat there and recorded the whole thing. I'll put it all in the description box, and then you can have a listen to yourself. So that's what I've been doing. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō.